What's up, everyone? Tara Roberts here with 4 for 4, and we are talking early trade targets. Let's look ahead to week 1 and see what players we should be watching for potential dud performances where we can swoop in and grab them early. Before we get started, be sure to like this video and subscribe. And if you want more fantasy insights and tips, head over to 4for4.com/plans and sign up for a subscription today. And exclusively for our YouTube audience, use promo code YouTube at checkout to save 25%. First up, I think that Najee Harris is in line for a solid season overall, but week 1 might get off to a rough start. The Steelers face a 49ers defense that is truly elite across the board and excels at stopping the run. The 49ers allowed the second least rushing yards in the league last year, and that's really underselling it. Literally 14 yards separated the 49ers from the leader, the Tennessee Titans. The next closest team wasn't even close. General sentiment around Najee is already questionable. A lot of people were burned by Najee in 2022 when he struggled to play through a Lisfranc injury and averaged just 10.9 fantasy points per game in PPR weeks 1 through 8. Now, Najee bounced back after the Steelers' bye week in week 9, averaging just over 15 fantasy points per game, but at that point, people were just fed up and it wasn't enough to really redeem him. If Najee has a subpar week 1 performances, fantasy managers might be willing to cut him loose early, below value, and you can swoop in and grab a guy whose pure volume and goal line preference will make him finish as a low-end RB1 or very high-end RB2. Moving on to the next player. Gabe Davis' post-hype season is officially underway. Well, okay, it's underway in week 2 because week 1, the Bills receivers draw the absolute worst possible matchup in the New York Jets. The Jets secondary features Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed and should continue to be an absolute nightmare of a matchup. The Bills have been very vocal that they want to put Gabe Davis into better situations and make him more involved and more consistent in the offense, and I buy into it. From a fantasy manager's perspective, Davis is absolutely a lock to have an incredibly high ceiling, scoring as many as 32 fantasy points in PPR last year. If he can just add consistency to bring his floor to a little bit of a higher level, he would be an excellent flex option for everyone. There's a very good chance that this does happen. It's just tough to imagine that it happens in week 1. And after getting massively burned last year by regular performances of just 5 to 6 fantasy points, if Davis is a dud against the Jets, fantasy managers might be willing to bail out early. And if someone like Dalton Kincaid steps up too and has a decent performance while Davis underwhelms, you can definitely buy into the dip here. This next one is a bit tricky, but it is worth a try. Fantasy managers know that it might take some time for Breece Hall to start looking like Breece Hall, so limited work in week 1 is unlikely to make them panic. But the Jets have confirmed that both Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall will play in week 1 in what should be a strong defensive matchup. We don't know any details in terms of how much each running back will play in the split, and what happens in week 1 will not be indicative of how the team will look moving forward. Again, anyone that drafted Hall should expect this was coming. But there could be some early season worries if Dalvin Cook comes out looking fantastic. The thing that we have to remember here is that there's a stark difference between the addition of Dalvin Cook and the addition of a team getting someone like Kareem Hunt. Cook did see a bit of a dip in efficiency last season, but nothing very dramatic. He still had 264 carries, nearly 1,200 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, and maintained his typical receiving workload. Cook is still an RB1 and very much so superstar quality, and some fantasy managers might be willing to part with Hall early if Cook comes out looking like the true RB1 that he is. The next player up is Terry McLaurin against Arizona. When you combine the potential low fantasy points with his turf toe, things start to get off to a very murky start. As of the filming of this video, McLaurin isn't actually a lock to play. If he misses the game or if he plays and is a bit limited, then Jahan Dotson can come in, have a strong game, look like the continuation of the superstar that he was becoming last year, and fantasy managers might regret investing in Terry McLaurin and think that Jahan Dotson is taking over as the one, and they will be ready to sell McLaurin early. You can swoop in and grab him. I have confidence that Rhamondre Stevenson will still be productive in the Patriots' backfield all season long. But all it takes is one Ezekiel Elliott touchdown, and you could sweep in and buy Rhamondre on the cheap. Philadelphia is always a tough draw as a matchup. Technically, New England's entire division is a tough matchup as a draw. But while some fantasy managers might be panicking if Zeke has good involvement in this first game, you can take advantage and try to get Stevenson. Rhamondre Stevenson's 2022 success, an overall finish of RB7, wasn't really the result of his work on the ground. Now, I mean, he was no slouch on the ground, of course. He had just over 1,000 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, but for reference, Tyler Algier had the same yardage with just 2 less touchdowns, and he finished as RB29. It was Stevenson's 69 receptions that boosted him to top 10 glory. And with the Patriots receiving core continuing to lack strong options, the likelihood that they'll be playing from behind as well, playing against some of the top offenses in the league, Stevenson should be fine season long. He should be a good trade target if the week 1 split makes people panic a little bit. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like the video and comment below as well. And if you want more fantasy insights and tips, head over to 4for4.com/plans and sign up for a subscription today. And exclusively for our YouTube audience, use promo code YouTube at checkout to save 25%.